Propaganda isn't information. It's a weapon aimed at your nervous system. As a quick teaser, in Lokasenna, Loki doesn't argue. He poisons the room. Slanders, rumors, and the mead mixed with misery. That's propaganda, not an argument. A climate. If a headline can spike your heart rate, it can steer your politics, your spending, your friendships, your future. Welcome back, friends. Today, I'm going to show you the field test I use to spot propaganda in real time, and it starts with Odin. I don't need to convince you propaganda exists. You can feel it. You can taste it. It's in the headlines, the slogans, the selective outrage, the sudden thing everyone must believe that shows up like a plague and then disappears the minute it's no longer useful. You've seen it in miniature. One cropped clip, one line of text over a face, and suddenly you know who the villain is, before you even know what happened. Or a headline that's basically a syringe. It injects rage first and only later offers you the facts. But here's the problem. Once people notice propaganda, a lot of them swing into the opposite sickness. They become cynical about everything. They assume all truth is manipulation. They assume everyone is lying. And they get addicted to suspicion, like suspicion itself is intelligence. That kind of cynicism doesn't make you strong. It makes you useless. Because you can't build anything if you don't trust anything. You can't have a family, you can't have a community, you can't have a team, and you can't have a sane mind if every thought is, what's the trick? The Havamal, words attributed to Odin in the Norse poetic Edda, doesn't teach that kind of cynicism. It teaches caution, discernment, keeping your wits. It says, basically, keep your eyes open. Men are what they are. Don't be naive. We used this doorway stanza in a previous episode because it's the cleanest warning I know. I want to come back to it here and ask what it means in a broader sense when the doorway is your feed, your friend group, your tribe, your whole information environment. In Crawford's translation, it's as plain as a hand on your shoulder. At every doorway, before you enter, you should look around. You should take a good look around, for you never know where your enemies might be seated within. That isn't paranoia. That's posture. It's a stance you take before you let something inside you. So, think of today's episode as Odin's field manual. Not a college lecture, not a political rant, a manual. Something you can actually use when the tribes are screaming and everybody's trying to pull your mind like it's a rope in a tug of war. Simple, repeatable, usable. And I want to say this up front because it matters. Use this on your side too. If you only use discernment as a weapon against the other tribe, you're not discerning. You're just being trained. You're not escaping propaganda. You're switching uniforms. On a personal note, I'm not speaking on this topic to score points. I'm doing it because I've watched my own mind get tugged by this stuff too. And I don't like who I become when I let it. I get sharper and meaner at the same time. I get more certain and less curious. That's not wisdom, that's capture. So, first, let's start by understanding the battlefield. The battlefield is your attention. Your attention is your life. If someone can capture your attention, they can steer your mood. If they can steer your mood, they can steer your choices. And if they can steer your choices, they can steer your future. This is not poetry, it is mechanics. That's why propaganda is constant now, because attention is worth money and power. A scared population is easier to manage. An angry population is easier to mobilize. A confused population is easier to deceive. Remember how I referred to Loki at the beginning of this episode about his mead mixed with misery? Here's what it looks like in full. It's in the Lokasenna, Loki's taunts, found in the poetic Edda. The gods are having a feast. There's mead, there's status, there's a room full of people who think they're safe because they're inside. Loki walks in like a drop match in dry grass. He doesn't come in with a sword, he comes in with words. He basically announces his plan out loud. I'm going to bring slanders and rumors, and I'm going to mix your mead with misery. That's the whole play. You poison the room. You sour the mood. You turn allies into suspects. You make everyone feel dirty, tense, reactive, so they start snapping at each other instead of thinking. They stop asking what's true and start asking who's pure. And here's what's chilling. He doesn't need to invent a new world. He just needs to change the emotional weather in the room. That's propaganda, not a debate, a climate. Now, field manual time. If you want this to be usable, it can't be abstract. It has to be something you can run in your head while your phone is buzzing. So, I'm going to give you a handful of checks, not as theory, as a quick walk to the doorway, a look around, and a decision about what you're about to let inside. First check. Before you even argue with the claim, ask the oldest question in the world. Who benefits? Not in the paranoid way, where you assume there's always a mastermind behind every story, in a practical way. Because every narrative creates permissions. Every story makes something easier to do. And I have to remind myself of that too, because my brain loves a neat villain. Most of the time, it's not a mastermind, it's incentives. Incentives don't need malice, they just need momentum. So when you see a story being pushed everywhere, don't only ask, is it true? Ask, what does this story allow people to do? What does it license? Does it make censorship feel normal? Does it make surveillance feel reasonable? Does it justify a punishment that would have been unthinkable last year? Does it excuse corruption? Does it create some kind of resource transfer while everyone is too emotional to notice? Does it make you stop asking questions or afraid to ask them? And watch especially for the most dangerous phrase in politics, just this once. Just this once, we need an exception. Just this once, we need emergency powers. Just this once, we need to break our own rules. That's how emergency becomes habit. That's where freedom dies quietly with paperwork and applause. Second check, and this one's internal. Watch what it does to your body. Propaganda is not primarily an argument. It's an emotion wearing an argument like a mask. You open your phone, you see a clip, and immediately your body reacts. Heat in the chest, jaw tight, fingers ready to type. That reaction might feel like moral clarity, but very often it's just capture. If your nervous system spikes, your discernment drops. When I notice that reaction in myself, I try to treat it like a flashing warning light, not a green light. I don't trust the first impulse to type. I name the emotion first. So train yourself to ask, right there in the moment, what emotion is this trying to rent inside me? Fear, rage, disgust, pride, humiliation, tribal warmth? What is it? And then ask the question most people never ask. What action is being smuggled in under that emotion? What am I being trained to do next? Share, shame, purchase, vote, report, ostracize, look away? Because that's the trick. You get the feeling first. And while you're under the feeling, you accept the policy. You accept the punishment. You accept the censorship. You accept the exception. You accept the simplification. If you can name the emotion, you can stop being carried by it. Naming buys you 1 second. Third check. Listen for the children's story, the forced two options story. Either you support this or you're evil. Either you say the phrase or you're dangerous. Either you agree with the whole package or you hate people. That's not an argument. It's a loyalty test. Reality is trade-offs. Reality is messy. Two things can be true at once. You can recognize a real problem and still disagree about the solution. So when a narrative compresses adult reality into a bedtime story with heroes on one side and monsters on the other, Treat it as suspect. If it won't allow nuance, it won't allow truth. Here's a quiet way to notice when you're being sold the children's story: how clean it makes you feel. If accepting the narrative instantly makes you feel morally pure and socially safe, be careful. Reality rarely makes you feel clean. Reality usually makes you feel responsible. Responsibility is heavier than outrage. Outrage is light because it asks nothing from you except more outrage. Fourth check: watch for scapegoats. In stressed times, scapegoats are gasoline. They give people a target for frustration. And I'm not saying that villains don't exist. Sometimes there are real bad actors. But scapegoating becomes propaganda when it turns into a vending machine. Insert anger, receive meaning. It simplifies the world and makes cruelty feel like justice. It distracts you from deeper causes, systems, incentives, leadership failures, hard trade offs, things that are boring and complex. Here's a useful test. When a scapegoat is offered, ask what responsibility is being avoided right now. What failure becomes invisible if I accept this easy target? Who gets to keep their authority, their money, their reputation because I'm busy hating the approved enemy? Fifth check: propaganda hates measurement. It hates clear standards and honest accounting. It loves vibes. Everyone knows. It's obvious. Studies show, without telling you what was measured. Because if you can measure something, you can prove it wrong. And propaganda can't survive that. Anything that makes you feel powerful while it makes you feel less precise, watch it. So build the habit, calmly, without being smug, of asking grounded questions. What would count as evidence here? What would make this claim false? Compared to what baseline? And what's being left out? And that last one matters more than people realize, because propaganda rarely lies with one sentence. It lies by omission. It lies by cropping. Here's a simple, everyday example. Someone tells you about a conflict. Two coworkers, two friends, a couple. They show you one screenshot, one message, and you feel the pull immediately. Oh, that person is clearly wrong. Then you ask, can I see what was said before that? And suddenly the energy changes because the screenshot wasn't a lie, it was just a frame. And a frame can tell the truth and still mislead you. That's the muscle you want online. Not never believe anything, just what am I not seeing? What would I need to know to judge this like an adult? Sixth check: notice the one-way standard. If one group is judged by rules and another group is judged by excuses, you're not hearing analysis, you're hearing recruitment. You're being invited into a tribe. The simplest test is this: would I accept this argument if the roles were reversed? If you'd instantly call it propaganda when the other side does it, then it's propaganda when your side does it too. This matters because propaganda doesn't only come from governments. It comes from movements, corporations, media, influencers who monetize your nervous system, and sometimes from your own friends. Good people who are emotionally captured. Now, one last check. And this one is where most people fail. It's not about your eyes, it's about your mouth. Propaganda spreads through an honorable impulse: the impulse to warn others, to protect people, to say, look out, this is dangerous. This one is where I catch myself. I'll feel certain, I'll feel righteous, and I'll want to hit share like it's a moral duty. The system doesn't need you to be fooled, it only needs you to be useful. The Havamal has some brutal lines about that. It's best for a fool to keep his mouth shut among other people. No one will know he knows nothing if he says nothing. The Havamal doesn't flatter you here. It gives you a rule that can save you from becoming the delivery system. And before you get offended, hear it the way it's meant, not as an insult, as a safeguard, as a discipline. In modern terms, if you can't pause, you can't think. And if you can't think, you're easy to steer. So here's a rule you can actually follow. When you feel the heat, add time. So before you repost, Before you repeat, before you perform outrage, ask yourself, do I know this or do I only feel it? Am I about to become the delivery system? Finally, this is the part nobody wants to do. You have to control your intake. People want a trick that lets them consume unlimited propaganda safely. There isn't one. If you bathe in poison, you get poisoned. And the most common poison right now isn't a single lie, it's constant exposure. It's living inside breaking news. It's carrying the siren in your pocket. If a source makes you furious every day, it is not informing you, it is training you. And if you're like me, you can feel the training happening in real time. So ration it. Step away from the siren. When possible, go to primary material, full speeches, full documents, full context. Because chopped clips are a propaganda machine all by themselves. Diversify on purpose, not to be fair, but to catch what each side omits. Every tribe has blind spots it will never admit. And if you only drink from one stream, you will inherit that blindness as if it were your own. And while you're doing all this, keep your life grounded in things propaganda can't touch: work, skill, family, training, real friendships, local community, your household, anchors. Because propaganda feeds on people who are unmoored. If you have nothing real, you will cling to ideology like driftwood. But if you can fix things, keep promises, show up on time, take care of your people, your mind has gravity. You can be informed without being captured. The more real your life is, the less a narrative can own you. So I'll end with this. The times are stressed. The tribes are screaming. And a lot of people are being driven half mad by it. You don't have to join them. The Havamal gives you a simple path. Keep your wits. Keep measure. Be cautious with words. Test people. Observe. And do not become a fool. And remember the feast in Lokasenna. Loki didn't need to win with facts. He just needed the room to feel poisoned. So, when your feed starts to feel like a feast turning sour, when slanders and rumors are suddenly everywhere, treat that as your warning sign. Stop at the doorway, look around, take a good look around. Because if you walk in heated, you're actually carrying the misery in the mead. Now, tell me honestly, what trick do you see most often right now? Is it the forced two option story, the scapegoat, the justice once emergency, the chop clip, the one way standard, the claim that can't be measured? And here's the harder one. Which one do you catch yourself falling for? When you're tired, when you're stressed, when you want to belong, and when you want the world to be simple? Because, my friends, that's the doorway. And the whole point of a field manual is that you learn to stop there. Look around and take a good look around before you step inside. That's enough Viking for today. Until next time.